Good morning, good morning. It's great to stay up late. Good morning to you.
Hey vlog, good morning. I hope you all had a beautiful night. Day 63 is here. My day 63 of my 365 days of my 2026 just begun. I just woke up. It's currently 10:34 in the AM. Today I've slept. I've not just slept, but I've overslept. It rained in the morning. It rained so heavily. It's crazy to think if I was going to work, I don't know what I would have done because I don't have a car. I don't have an umbrella. What would I have done because it rained for such a long time? It rained like from probably maybe 5:30 to around 8. And so it was supposed to be at work at 8 and it's raining that heavily. What would I have done? So probably there's a reason as to why I don't have a job. Saved me, being jobless saved me that hassle of going to work with all this rain today, especially. So I hope you've had a good night. I hope you slept like a baby because it's been raining. I hope you all are not experiencing any floods. I hope no one is experiencing floods. My heart also goes out to the people in the Middle East. I've been seeing the news, and all I can pray for is for peace for them. Any people who have gone through injuries, losses, I'm so sorry. Sad to think that my story won't do anything, but what else can I do? What else? What to do? Other than pray for you all and majorly keep you in my prayers. Yeah, I feel like that's the most important thing, and praying for peace. Praying for peace is the most important thing as well. So I'm here to clock in and remind myself and remind you to lock in intentionally so that by the end of the year we may be happy with what we've done for ourselves. So nothing much really to say today, and nothing much to do other than edit yesterday's vlog and continue job hunting, and yeah, and bask my limes and maybe do some laundry, and I'll see how the day unfolds and also vlog my day. That's the major job I have today and all the days of my 365 days until something major comes up. But even if something major comes up, I won't let go of vlogging because that is something I've set up myself to do the whole of this year. So I am here to wish you a very beautiful day ahead, a successful day, a productive day, a positive day, a day where you choose to smile, a day where you choose to eat a balanced diet, a day where you choose to remember to clock in and lock in intentionally, a day where you choose to encourage your kid, your child, and let them know the importance of putting their best foot forward and working hard, not just hard but smart, choosing to drink your water, choosing to smile and all those good things, and choosing to rise up amidst all the adversities here. So please also do not forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Today let's comment the flag of Botswana. Yeah, let's comment the flag of Botswana. I'll put it over here. Yeah, so allow me to love you and leave you until the time I'll be clocking out, and I'll meet you back here so that we can read the book and discuss or catch up on how the day has been. Till then, please choose to clock in and lock in intentionally and be happy, smile, and all that good stuff. I'll see you later. Hey vlog, so it's currently 15:25, 3:25 in the PM. We are still in day 63, and I currently want to wash my brushes. I thank God I got a makeup call for tomorrow and probably for Friday. I hope I'm not talking too soon, but as of in the morning, I got a client who wants me to do their makeup tomorrow and on Friday. So I currently want to start prepping. I want to wash my brushes and clean my kit, and then I'll carry you with me tomorrow as we go and glam up the client. Yeah, I get so excited because I enjoy glamming up ladies and even men. I mean, like, if you feel like being glammed up as a man, it's still okay, no judgment here. So this is a safe space, this is a safe space. So yeah, that's what I want to do right now. I'm so excited because, gosh, only God knows how I need that money. I have a health assessment checkup on the 10th of this month, which is next week, and so God actually has met me at my point of need because I didn't even have the fare to go to the location, to the hospital. So I really do thank God. Yeah, so let's get into washing the brushes as I listen to some music and as I organize the kit in preparation for tomorrow. Yeah, God is indeed faithful, and I thank Him for that and for meeting me at my point of need. And may He continue meeting me at my point of need, and may He also continue meeting you at your point of need. Yeah, because that is very much welcome. Yeah, so let's do exactly that. Hey vlog, I hope each and every one of you has had a good day today. So my day 63 is over, and it's currently 19:58, 7:58 in the PM. And as standard procedure, even before we start so many stories, I just want us to read the book. I want us to read this book, and then for 30 minutes, and then I can clock off and we can catch up on how your day and my day has been. Okay. So sadly my phone is off. The phone that I usually use as my timer is off, and I don't think there's a chance of it going on right now. So I'll just time myself with the timer, with the recording time. And I've now recorded for 1 minute. So when it gets to 31 minutes is when I'll stop reading. Yeah, so if you're new here, I'm currently reading this book. It's called Unstoppable, My Life So Far by Maria Sharapova, who was a pro tennis player. I think she's currently retired. I don't know, I'm not quite sure. But I think she doesn't play like championships anymore. Correct me if I'm wrong. So this has been quite a very good read. If you don't want to hear me read or want to hear what this book is all about, you can watch my vlogs, the vlogs that are already there. And this is a thing that I've been doing. I've been reading this book, and I'll read it until we are done. So we left at page 120. Actually, page 120, heading to page 121. So the last sentence was, "It's fine for a little girl, but you're no longer a little girl. You're growing into a powerful woman, and you must serve like one. You are turning into a powerful woman, and you must serve like one. Your game is not finesse, it's power." "Why now?" asked Max. "Because now she is strong enough to have a real serve," said my father. In the following days, we flew back to Florida and started working on my serve with one of the academy coaches, Peter McGraw, an Australian. We worked at Bollettieri's as the sun went down and the bags swarmed, hitting buckets of balls. Sorry, I was just removing my socks. So, hitting buckets of balls. The fear of their stingers gave me an urgency to the sessions. We spent hours and hours adjusting my serve, hitting the ball, then figuring out what had done right and what had done wrong by watching me on video. We made changes, then changed those changes until the serve that would definitely define the first part of my career finally began to emerge. It was not an entirely new serve, of course. It was a refinement of the serve I had developed with Yuri years before, but it made use of my new body: height, strength, broad shoulders, and arms flexibility. I'm strangely flexible, especially in my shoulders. This let me reach so far back when winding up to serve that my knuckles occasionally brushed against my spine. I turned into a human slingshot, arm whipping forward. It generated a kinetic energy that sent the ball whistling. I had a second serve that was slower and more certain for when I needed it, but it was that first serve that really enabled me to win. I had transformed a shot that was mediocre, neutral, into a weapon, one that could rely on when I found myself down in a match. Struck just right, it was devastating. It meant 3 points. It meant starting each service point from a position of power, dictating what happened from there. It meant my service games were quicker, my matches shorter. To beat me, You had to break my serve. Which did not break as easily as it had before. That's when I became dangerous. That's when all those defeats turned into victories. At age 15, I began to win and win consistently. My serve propelled me into a golden era, some of the best years of my career. But I would eventually pay a price for that serve and the tremendous pressure it put on my shoulder. My father had been waiting for a new sign, some indication that I was ready to compete in the big tournaments on the big stage of the professional tour. Technically, I was already a pro. I'd played for money. I was ranked and I was known in the world of junior tennis, but I'd yet to play in the top tier tournaments, the majors covered by the press and followed by the fans. More money, more pressure. You fail there, it's a whole different level of complication and consequence. The sign came on a trip we made back to Russia. It probably wasn't my first trip back, but it was the first trip I really remember. We visited Moscow and stayed in Sochi, and we traveled. We saw my grandparents, friends, and relatives. It was strange to stand in those little houses and little apartments again. Everything was so much bigger in America. I will always be Russian in my heart and in my soul, yet there is no hiding the fact that I spent many of my key early years in Florida and California watching American TV and wanting American products. Some part of my identity will always be from the US. It's the most comfortable culture for me, where I really feel at ease. I understood this only when I went back to Russia. That's the thing about living life on the circuit. Training from such an early age, you make a dozen different hotels and apartments and countries your home, which is another way of saying you kind of live nowhere. Everything drifts by. You never let yourself get too deep or have too much fun because you know that the day after tomorrow he'll be gone. Only the tennis rackets remain, always by your side. People think it's a glamorous life, but in a way it is. Maybe it is. I am not convinced. It can also be confusing and lonely. I played tennis every day on that trip back to Russia. Yuri made sure of that. We had to stick to the schedule, the regimen. That meant waking up just after dawn, stretching and running, then finding a court. I've always believed that you have to train harder than you play. That's how you win. That's how you win. So that the match, when it comes as a kind of break. And you train in this world, not for one match, or for one tournament, or for one session, but for an entire career, which will continue until they make you leave the last court on the final day. At the time, it was still just me and Yuri, out there each morning hitting. We went back to Gomel at the end of the trip, the land of radiation. We stayed with my grandparents, walked through the streets of the little town, wandered into the park and forest. Yuri arranged a match for me at the public courts where he'd first started playing. He set me up to play against this big guy who was studying me from the far court, waving a big hand in a big greeting. I don't really remember what he looked like, but he was tall and square-jawed with a 5 o'clock shadow and thick black hair. I did not know it at the time, but this guy had been the standard on Yuri's old tennis scene, the unbeatable star. Yuri had been defeated by him and had seen him defeat every other good player in the area. I did not know any of this until later, much later, but this man stood as a kind of benchmark for my father, a symbol. He was to be my test. How I will stand up against this old-time hero? If you can play with him, Masha, you are good. Yuri told me. If you can take more than 5 games off him, you are ready for whatever is waiting for you. I was 15 years old or close. This man must have been 40. He had an old-fashioned racket and a big ground stroke that started at his heels and ended in the sky. The court was scuffed and slow, and the man grunted as we played, but I grunted louder. He was not a pushover, but he was also not all that my father remembered. I took his best shots and returned them on the rise, hitting the ball just as Robert Lansdorp would have wanted me to, hard and flat, and just a whisker above the net. As the game went by, the man became agitated, then annoyed, then angry, and could not believe what was happening. He was really losing to this kid. This girl? Was he really losing to this kid? This girl? We played 2 sets. I won them both. It was close. Something like 7-5, 7-6. The angrier this man became, the happier my father got. It was as if that anger were a gauge. Yuri watched the needle climb and smiled. When it touched the red, he was fully satisfied. As we left the courts, in a dark building with weak yellow lights, echoing with the sound of the balls, he put his arm over my shoulder, as if to say, Masha, you are ready. My life as a professional tennis player really began in the spring of 2001, soon after I turned 14. The first tournaments were small time, a court on the outskirts of some medium-sized city, a few thousand to the winner. I won several of these and began to move up the ladder to bigger showcases and larger stages. First were junior national tournaments, then the junior Grand Slams. I was flying commercial airlines all over Europe as cheaply as possible, flying, as Yuri would say, in the toilet. We'd also travel by train in the rare cars with our cash and passports safely out of reach of any potential thieves. To prepare, I would get to town a couple of days before the tournament. I was almost always playing girls who were older than me, which was really nothing new. At 13, I'd reached the final of the Junior Italian Open, where I lost to a 17-year-old. I made my WTA debut as a 14-year-old in 2022. This was the Pacific Life Open, now Indian Wells. I beat Brie Ripner in the first round, 5-7, 6-1, 6-2. In the second round, I got to play Monica Seles, which was a big moment for me. I was 14 and Seles had just turned 28. She'd been the greatest player in the world. She was also a hero, less for me than for my father, who'd studied her 200 game for hours and hours on videotape. It was close to 10 years beyond the terrible stabbing she had suffered between games in Hamburg, but it was still Monica Seles, one of the best in the game. She'd won 9 Grand Slams and spent months and months at number 1. I could not keep my eyes off her. It was so strange being on the same court. It was almost like I had fallen into the television set. I was surprised to find myself on the wrong side of the screen. I was dazzled. Too, which might help explain the beating I took. 6-0, 6-2. I won only 2 games that afternoon, but there were moments when I forgot who she was and who I was and just played. It was a huge match for me because it taught me 2 important things. 1, that I could in fact play with the best of them, and 2, that I belonged. It also showed me just how far I still had to go, how much better I still had to become. Seles made it to the semi-finals of that tournament, losing just a handful of games along the way. She lost to Martina Hingis in the semis, who then lost to Daniela Hantukova in the final. There were so many levels, so many people to beat. I don't remember much about that match except the scoreline and Maria Jo Fernandez giving me a hug in the locker room after the match when she saw me crying. I spent most of 2022 and 2023 as a junior because there were only a limited number of pro tournaments I was allowed to play. I was still too young to play a full WTA schedule. By the end of the season, I was number 6 in the junior ranks. People were starting to know my name. Coaches would show up at my matches, to watch me play and search for my weaknesses. They devised strategies to beat me. My big weakness at that time, I was slow and not powerful enough to make up for that lack of speed. I needed to get stronger. I needed to mature. As I became known, so did Yuri. This is just the way things on the tennis tour, This is just the way of things on the tennis tour, especially in the juniors. It's the mothers and the fathers you remember, the tennis parents, each of whom seems to stand for their kid. Yuri struck many people as a typical crazy Russian man, hyper-controlling and iron-willed. This was not true or not entirely true. It was just a caricature that came across in newspaper stories. Yes, my father did pace on the sidelines. He did whisper in my ear as I came out of the stadium tunnel. He did sit in the stands, giving me signals, which pissed off everyone. Coaching is not all allowed during games, especially not from the stands. But he wasn't coaching from the stands, not at all. He was giving me reminders. I'd get so caught up and confused during matches that I'd forget to drink and eat, and my blood sugar would crash and I'd get dehydrated. By late in the second set, the world will start to reel and my stomach heave. So during the changeovers, when I looked up at the stands to see my father, he might hold up a bottle of water, which meant drink, or a banana, which meant eat. For the most part, my father was just a classic tennis parent. And the fact is, you probably need someone like that if you're going to make it to the top. Maybe that's the case with every sport, but it seems especially true of the non-team sports, those games to which you have to dedicate your life when you are still too young to really know it. It usually takes a strong parent. Who else is going to get out there day after day and make the kid work when the kid only wants to go back to sleep or play video games? No 7-year-old in the world will do that on her own, and no 12-year-old will stay with it when things go bad, as they always sometimes do, unless someone is right there cheering them along. In other words, you might not like all the antics and the TV time of the tennis parent, but without those parents, you will not have the Williams sisters or Andre Agassi or me. The tennis parent is the will of the player before the player has formed a will of her own. When I look back, it's the big moments that stand out, the turning points. The rest of it fades into a kind of grey wash. Statistics on the scorecard, numbers on a page. For me, the first big marker, it stands like the entry gate to my adult career, was the 2002 Australian Open. I was playing in the junior tournament. I did not go in with a spotlight on my back. I was very young and skinny, and people did not expect much from me on a stage that big. They knew I was good, but considered me more of a prospect than a threat. I still seemed to be about 2 or 3 years away, but I knew something that the sport writers and tennis people did not. I knew that something had happened to me. Something had changed. It was a deep down thing, like the gears had shifted in the dark, and I woke up in the morning thinking, my God, I can beat anyone. This was my first Grand Slam in the juniors, one of the 4 major tournaments you must win to be at the very top of the game. The others are the French Open, Wimbledon, and the US Open. It was the first time I'd experienced the electric atmosphere of the big time. All those people and all those reporters and all those players, the best in the sport, gathered together for a week of the roughest sort of competition. I loved it. It made me nervous and it made me excited and happy because I knew I was exactly where I belonged. My early matches flew by like a dream. It seemed as if I won them all in straight sets, though that can't be true. I can't remember the last time I got through a tournament without a 3-set match, but there was a lot of winning, and it left me with a lot of time to explore and soak up the atmosphere. Between matches, I watched the best games of the main draw, the pros. I love the energy of center court 10 minutes before the start of a big contest. Jennifer Capriati, Kim Clijsters, and Monica Seles. But even then, a million years ago, the dominant players, here they are again, were Venus and Serena Williams, the sisters. But even if I watched them play, which I hardly ever did, unless I was on the other side of the net, it was in an abstract way, not all that interested. I looked at their game the way you might look at a tough math problem that nobody else has to solve. I'd yet to realize that all these players, all these problems were my problems. It was personal. I'd have to solve every one of them if I wanted to get where I needed to go. I kept winning my matches. That was the main thing. A week went by, and just like that, I was in the final. I later learned that at 14 years and 9 months, I was the youngest player to ever make it to any final in the Australian Open. That's beautiful. I played Barbora Sikova in the final. Not only did she beat me, but she was dating my first ever junior crush, Philip Petsna. I did not like that. I didn't like that at all. Barbara was a tough zech who would later climb as high as number 9 in the world. She was a whirlwind, coming at me from every part of the court, returning every flat-hard ground stroke with a little dink that grew maddening as she won more and more points. It's amazing. You spend months and years getting yourself into a match, and then if you don't slow down the world and really grab hold of the moment, it's over before you know it. You heard? If you don't slow down the world and really grab hold of the moment, it's over before you know it. I feel like I want to put this mic over here or over here. I think it's better that way. It's over before you know it. I did not win a game in the first set. As I walked back to the baseline after the water break, I heard my father yell to me in Russian, "Do you know what you're losing? You're losing a $50,000 Nike bonus." It was the first time I had ever heard my father speak about earnings. I managed to fight back and take 5 games in the second set, but it didn't matter. Or if it did matter, it was only for my self-respect. But even with this disappointing finish, I knew it had been a great tournament for me. The youngest player to ever reach the final. There was a feeling that I was already so much further along than I was expected to be, that I was years ahead of schedule. But the highlight of the year, and it's not even close, was Wimbledon. That tournament had always felt special to me, though I'd never actually been there. I stood above and beyond all the others, probably because my father never stopped talking about it. It was the ultimate prize and the ultimate place. It glowed in his imagination. The Australian Open, the US Open, the French Open, yes, they were all Grand Slams and all mattered, but Wimbledon mattered more. The others were sporting events, money and crowds. Wimbledon was something grander. It was the Queen and her retina. It was aristocrats. It was the red coats of the royal guard, the lush grounds, and epic battles on the green grass. It was history and empire. It was England. If you grew up in a poor Belarusian town, like my father did, if you watched that tournament, if you could watch it at all, on a flickering black and white TV set, if your eyes chased Borg and McEnroe all over the screen, then Wimbledon stood out. Yuri had conveyed this specialness to me from the time I was small. Every match mattered. Every tournament deserved my full attention and best effort. But Wimbledon still is of another order. It's the soul of the game. It's everything. This year, 2002, was my first experience of this special place. Was I excited? Of course. It was a story I'd been listening to my entire life. Now I got to walk into its pages. My mother came along, which was unusual. Wimbledon itself is a suburb in southwest London. Wimbledon itself is a suburb in southwest London. There's a main street and outskirts, ancient trees and shady places, bed and breakfasts and few hotels, but most players rent a house for the 2 weeks that they will hopefully be playing. We rented a tiny cottage that first year, right in the village. I loved it from the first day. It was all that I had imagined. I'd wake up with the sun streaming into my tiny room, or cover myself with a heavy quilt against the chill of another grey morning. Then I'd head down the stairs, open the door, and there, on the cute little front porch, just waiting for me, was a chilled bottle of fresh milk. What a great break from the usual round of hotels and locker rooms. The village was jammed with boutiques and cafes and bakeries. It was fantasy of another life. How I might have lived had I been born in a different place at a different time. On one of the restaurants, this little Thai place kept catching my eye. It was always packed, always had a wait. We never went, but I kept it in mind. If when I was back in Wimbledon, I was going to try it. The clubhouse was filled with gossipy players. Reporters waited outside the door. This was a new experience for me. Who cared what I had to say? The lockers were small and the bathrooms were yuck. When I joked about this, one of the other girls told me that the top 16 seeded players are put in another locker room, a dream place of plush velvet where the porcelain shines. Capitalism, the West. They always give you something practical to play for beyond just the prestige and money. You are not playing only for cash. You are playing for a locker room with private bathtubs, a fresh plump fresh plump strawberries, and a decent place to hang your jacket. It was a great tournament for me. I did not lose until I reached the junior final, where I was beaten in 3 sets by another, let's read one more page, Russian, Vera Dushevina. But that's not what sticks in my mind. What sticks in my mind is what happened after. As I was changing in front of my dunk little locker, I tossed my stuff in a bag and was about to head back to the cottage. But just as I was leaving, a tournament official handed me an invitation. It turned out that all those players, men and women, juniors and pros, who make it to the final are invited to the Wimbledon Ball, a big gala right out of a storybook. Also, I thought, where the Duke of this and the Lady of that are trailed by retinues and dance with the winners and losers as an orchestra plays a muzaka and the moon swells over England. The woman who gave me the invitation was just standing there, hovering, watching as I read. And here's the key thing: not leaving. I looked up at her, smiled, and said, "It sounds nice. Will you be attending, madam?" "I'd like to go," I told her, "but I don't have a dress." She said, "That will be taken care of," and snapped her fingers and gave a signal of some sort. And out of nowhere, a man appeared with a huge selection of gowns, which he spread out on a table. I chose a long one, covered in beads, and left. The grounds of Wimbledon were deserted as I headed back to the cottage. Frog crept along the pathways. The tournament was over. Just about all the other players had packed and left. It's a strange thing that happens when you start to get deep into tournaments. You suddenly find yourself in a lot of empty spaces, empty halls, and empty locker rooms. The crowd of players and families and coaches began to disappear. By the quarterfinals of a tournament, only a handful of survivors remain. The better you do, the smaller the world becomes. I remember having this strange feeling that night as I left. It was deja vu in reverse. I remember turning around and looking at the buildings in the fog. Fog crept. I remember turning around and looking at the buildings in the fog and having a feeling that I'd be there again, and not just as a junior. Yuri was reading the newspaper when I got in. He did not notice the gown, which I hung up in a hall closet. Without looking at me, he said, "Where do you want to go? What do you want to do for dinner?" "I'm thinking we should try that Indian place." "Sorry," I told him, "but I've got plans." "What plans?" My mother helped me get dressed. We had a special moment looking at each other in a big mirror in that little cottage, laughing and telling jokes. That was easily the best moment of the night. The ball itself was highly disappointing. There's one thing I do remember though. Everyone came into the big room together. Everyone except the men's and women's singles champions, who made their appearance only after all the others had been seated. They came in one at a time, each making a great entrance through huge ornate doors and between the tables as those in the room gasped, then cheered. I was at the juniors' table, which was like the kids' table at a wedding. We were set up right beside the entrance. Just as I started to relax, I heard the clapping, that thunderous applause. Serena Williams had won the championship that year. She did it by beating her sister, Venus, in the final. She'd already started to separate herself from all the other players and had begun that crazy run of dominance. She squeezed every bit of glory out of her grand entrance, head held high, shoulders back, beaming. Cheers and cheers and cheers. People started getting to their feet. It was a standing ovation. We stopped there at page 133, or we just finished, then start over at chapter 10 tomorrow. The girl next to me, whoever that was, I can't remember, banged me on the shoulder and said, "Get up, get up. It's Serena Williams." I wanted to get up, but my body just wouldn't let me. It was as if I was stuck in that chair, staring at Serena through the crowd of people, with a single thought in my head: "I'm going to get you." Wow, so that's over. So tomorrow we start at chapter 11, chapter 10, chapter 11, chapter 10. I think I'm crazy about chapter 11. So yeah, that's about it. A beautiful read indeed, and so I hope you're enjoying it even in the midst of my reading errors. I hope you're enjoying and getting motivated to always clock in and lock in intentionally, even though the odds are against you. Yeah. So allow me to love you and leave you. I feel like I'm tired today. I'm having a slight headache. Yeah. Tomorrow I'm going to work. I thank God. I'll take you along with me, and we're going to see how the day unfolds. I hope you had a good day today. Your day 63 has been good. Mine has been well. Nothing much really, other than anticipating for the best. I cleaned my brushes. The lime trees basked. Yeah. I prayed, hoped for the best, remained positive, yeah, all that good stuff. I also hope that you had a good day, and I'll meet you back here tomorrow. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Today we were commenting the Botswana flag, so yeah. So allow me to love and leave you until tomorrow, day 64, where I'll meet you back here for the daily dose of inspiration and motivation. Yeah. Until then, please do have yours a beautiful evening, night, day, depends on what time you're watching this. And I wish you nothing but God's love in your life. See you tomorrow.